It is the fifth and final model introduced in the 2024 Go Nagai Collaboration with Medarot S, highlighting the legendary Devilman himself of the legendary author. It is DYN04 Devil Hero, with a kit of Sanction, Big Bang, Curse Shot, Flight Legs, and the leg ability of Avoidance, which is a brand new leg ability that will buff the user's damage dealt if the user's evade is higher than that of the target's. Now, as we wrap up the Go Nagai collaboration with one last franchise of the legendary author, Devil Hero here in particular is most certainly not pulling any punches either, with three very powerful skills that are all brought to the table, two of which for the first time ever on arms that can be used repeatedly over and over, and one brand new head skill which basically serves as an inverse to punishment to really spice up the game, especially when it comes to juggling crowd control. Sanction on the head part is a brand new head skill which, like I said, is basically a inverse to punishment, but it's also a shooting skill on top of that to serve as another point of counterpart. The way Sanction behaves is that, inverse to punishment, it will deal times 1.5 damage if it attacks a foe in cooldown. So basically you have to attack your foe on the back, much like you would with, say, Sujigiri, and you deal 0.5 damage if you attack a foe from the front. However, inversely to punishment, Sanction will inflict up to 5 random ailments at random, much like punishment, but instead inflict melt, freeze, canceller, defense seal, or hold at random. And to explain each of these 5 ever so briefly, just to touch on them, Melt inflicts a DOT that will slowly whittle the user's health over time, the target's health over time. Freeze will stop a foe cold and guarantee that any hit lands and will be a critical hit on top of that. Canceller will temporarily prohibit the user from attacking the part that it does damage in question. Defense Seal prevents the foe from being able to defend against any attacks and guarantee that any hit that lands is going to be a critical hit. Or Hold, which will prevent the foe from being able to dodge and reduce their heat and cool by up to 25%. Big Bang on the right arm is a relatively new skill, but also very niche and very powerful if used correctly. But to explain it has a very interesting damage modifier and condition in order to be found. If you attack a part that is at 100% HP and unscratched, you have a 70% likelihood of insta-breaking the part, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. However, if you attack a part that is already damaged in any way that is not at 100% HP, you instead will heal the part for the amount of damage that you would have dealt instead on a regular hit. So do make sure that you pay attention, because Big Bang is a skill that you basically want to start the fight with, where nobody is scratched and basically everyone's starting from the word go. Curse Shot on the left arm, and the last skill that is also a relatively newer one, not seen too terribly often, is another rather unique shooting skill that upon attacking the target, when it breaks apart for a certain amount of turns, it prevents that part from being restored or healed until the ailment is removed or until a certain amount of turns pass. In addition, Curse Shot is also one of those rare skills that we have started seeing more and more often these days, where it's something that you cannot spam repeatedly. So if you plan to use Curse Shot, you have to be able to use it once, switch between, say, Sanction or Big Bang, and then you can use Curse Shot again. Flight Legs means that he's going to have a very high base evade and mobility, and relatively decent terrain coverage across most of the board, but also specialized in having basically no armor, and that is kind of to be expected here with these numbers as well. In addition to this, he also is of course weak to anyone using anti-air, unless of course you have someone that brings anti-jammer to the table. But to look at his stats across the board, when it comes to armor, he's not too shabby either, kind of par for the course when it comes to males with Flight Legs. Base armor with a head HP of about 3,600, arms about 3,300 each, and legs at almost 3,800. Fairly healthy, especially with those legs as well, means that it's going to be pretty tough to take him down if it's not anything overly powerful. With his leg stats, though, is where he really starts cooking. A base heavy limit of 0 out of 0 is basically expected when it comes to Flight Legs. A base mobility of over 1,100 is definitely nice, and also fully expected for very powerful Flight Legs like these. And the evade of 2,300 will very easily put him on the upper tier, if not the highest base evade that you can get before any other modifiers come into play. This includes any Medarot bonuses, any terrain bonuses, or any other passes that you choose to add. That base 2300 is going to be incredibly tough to beat, and guarantee that in basically every situation, the leg ability of Avoidance, which buffs damage if the user's evade is higher than the target's, is almost always going to proc no matter what. However, with a base melee resist of barely mid 500s at 559 and shoot resist at all barely 800 at 786, he's going to be, unfortunately, very squishy. So it doesn't matter even if it's a weak attack, it is going to be relatively painful to him, and he's going to be really seriously banking on that very high evade to keep his damage as low as possible by grazing the attack and keep it low, or outright dodging it entirely. And if anyone brings anti-air to the mix, well, he's unfortunately going to be dead and dusted and gone sooner than later. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I do have to rate Devil Hero kind of a middle-of-the-road, kind of 6 out of 10, I have to say, and I have to kind of be really generous with that, primarily because even though all three of his skills and his legs are actually very good across the board, and the numbers are nice, it is also hard to, I do also have to address the elephant in the room and pretty much just say outright that all three of his skills are very, very situational and niche. Sanction basically requires you, even if the ailments will inflict no matter which direction you hit them, if you want to get that damage bonus, you have to hit them in their cooldown, and you only get 4 uses out of it. Big Bang requires you to basically hit something that's been unscratched, or you're basically healing the enemy, and Curse Shot is something that you can't spam over and over. And if the enemy brings a stat cleanse to the table, that unfortunately does negate that as well. But the leg ability of Avoidance does mean he will hit just a little bit harder than pretty much than the average bot, unless they can somehow beat a base of 8 at 2300, which is going to be a very small handful of models if I'm being completely honest with you. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10. Given that even though, like I said, he is very situational and niche, if you use all three of his parts across the team or on different builds, then you could really start cooking. Sanction could be really nice, for that crowd control juggling, like I said. Big Bang basically is to start using if you're right from turn 1 when the fight says go. Curse Shot if you are able to slip it in there, but the legs are going to be the really big ticket event of anything to do with Devil Hero. So if you are planning to pick him up at all over the course of this collaboration, if you walk out with just the legs and nothing else on him, I would honestly call that a win and call it a day.